in Mao's China, there was, after a period of repression, there was something called "Let 100 flowers bloom." We need new ideas. It's like it's
Mm.
okay now. I know what happened before was nasty, but like speak up. Like we want more innovation. We want everyone. We want to hear from everybody. Well, that was a trap. That was a trap. So, that eventually got closed on. I mean, the people who spoke up inappropriately, were definitely punished for it. So, yeah, I feel like we're in 100 flowers bloom era.
You're watching CapitalCosm. My name is Danny. It is August 26th, 2025, and my guest is none other than Matt Smith from the Casey's Take YouTube channel. Matt, thank you so much for coming on.
Danny, it's always fun to be with you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, man, it's a good time when we get together. Let's go ahead and dive in here, Matt. I know you've got a awesome new book that's coming out. That's already out, actually. It's called The Preparation. It's been authored by you, Doug Casey, and your son, Maxim Smith. We'll get into that here in a bit. And I mean, this one is you're going to want to hear about this book, guys, especially if you have sons or if you are a young man yourself and you're trying to figure out how to navigate the coming turbulent world ahead, the unpredictability ahead. And so with all that said here, Matt, let's go ahead and dive into what you're looking at the moment. What's top of mind for you? What's occupying your headspace?
Well, I think the biggest thing for me is the confusion about what is actually happening in the world right now. I mean, the signal to noise ratio is totally out of whack. It's almost like the social media, the news channels are basically being flooded with noise so that no one has a clue what's going on. And I mean, to the extent that if the way that affects the economy, exporters are just deciding to step aside and wait because they literally don't know whether or not if they ship something today based upon what they think, if they can figure out what tariffs are at this moment, that by the time it arrives in port that it'll still be the same. I mean, it's just an incredibly confusing time, and then we've got this the all the Epstein stuff came up, and then you've got all the now we're going hard after Obama stuff that's happening, and then we've got we're going to be good friends with Russia, and then now we find out we're sending them a bunch of long range missiles, and I mean it's just how is one supposed to understand what's happening right now, and how are people, if you're running a business of any scale, how are you supposed to plan? And then you have these wild things like how the U.S. ends up with 10% of Intel.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on here?
I think it's psyops layered on top of psyops and deception on many sides. I mean, there is nothing is to be taken at face value.
No,
And for those who speculate, like, oh, this is what they're really doing, we don't really know, and it's not meant to for us to know. It's meant to be
no,
deceptive.
I think we're supposed to be confused
Mm-hmm.
because, a great salesman once told me, an old friend of mine who was probably the best salesperson I've ever met in my life. He said, a confused mind always says no. And what I mean by no is like, no, I'm not going to take any action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what this creates, this environments create, is a set of confused minds where basically nobody knows, nobody feels the need to take any action.
Paralysis, yes.
Paralysis, yes. So I think that's the biggest challenge, I guess, that I'm contending with at this point, because I consider myself pretty good at being able to read the tea leaves and see the direction of things, but I find it incredibly confusing now. So unless you are coming into it with a bias where you believe a certain thing is happening, and then you can somehow fit all of your preconceived notions within whatever you see. You can describe it as, oh, of course, this makes perfect sense according to my ideology that this is what's going on. But if you're looking at it all objectively, it's very difficult to understand. And I mean, this 10% Intel thing is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And then what was done with the other chip companies, also crazy, where with NVIDIA, where they say, okay, now you can sell to China and the rest of the world, but because you're a U.S. company, even though all your stuff is made in Taiwan, you got to pay a royalty. to the U.S. Treasury of 15%. I mean, this is done with no law passed, no whatever. It's just a deal done between Trump and the company. And this is a weird thing that's going on. I mean, we are
And
entering
there's
a
more to
period
come.
of
And there's
Mhm.
sorry to didn't mean to interrupt, but he says that he's looking to do more deals of that nature as well.
Right. And I mean, for the people who said there was, how could you possibly have a sovereign wealth fund? Well, I think you have your answer now. If we're getting big equity stakes in these companies, in these private companies, for nothing, I think those are certain. I mean, you could easily justify how those things could end up in a sovereign wealth fund. So, because I know a lot of people were thinking that's stupid. That never doesn't make any sense. You can't have a country that's in debt not have a sovereign wealth fund. But if you do it like this, you could. But the question is, what kind of system do we have now if this is the way things work?
There was a piece written by I can't remember who, but it likens the current Trump administration to wanting to pursue like the state capitalist model based off of China. I think. I mean, this is just
That
my
was
own.
my original thesis in February was reading their papers, reading what Stephen Moran had written before. I'm like, I
Hmm.
think they want to copy China.
Yeah, and look, I mean, this is just my hunch, but my hunch is that I think President Trump does admire Xi Jinping. I think he really does admire Putin. I think he really does admire the strongman leaders of all of these other of the East, and I think there's a little bit of envy that he doesn't have that same level of control of autocracy that they have, that they enjoy, that he doesn't
Hmm.
have, that he can't wrangle his government with the same efficiency that they can. So I think that's why they're heading in this direction.
But it seems like he has a lot more power to um, influence the private sector than the public sector.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that might be the biggest difference between the two, because I mean these deals he worked out with the chip companies are crazy. I mean they really are unthinkable a year ago that these things would occur, and now they just strong armed him. At first he's tweeting about how that CEO must be fired. Intel, the CEO, he must be fired, and the next thing, next tweet is, he's a great guy. He's on our side, and now we own $11 billion of the company. But at whose expense? The shareholders of Intel, I suppose, right?
Mm.
So it's not like this is the problem with mercantilism, which is really what this is. That's certainly the practice that's been followed by China. Absolutely, is mercantilism. The problem with that is it's a win-lose proposition. Uh, it's not like capitalism in the way it's supposed to function. It's a expanding pie thing. Like everyone benefits from it.
Mm.
But in mercantilism, it's definitely there are winners and losers chosen among the mix. And while even if his objective is overall, hey, well, let's let Americans win, there are going to be losers along that way, including maybe the Intel shareholders who got diluted by 10%, for instance. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, really hard to predict exactly where it's going to go. But the biggest problem, again, I think, is the noise to signal ratio. It's like, what do you pay attention to? And I wonder, I mean, you must be a mass consumer of this stream of information that's coming your way. Like, how do you make sense of, should this matter or not matter? How do you do it?
I just look at things in terms of probability because, yeah, it is a stream of information and it comes in contradictory ways at times. And sometimes you just have to
Most
attach
times,
probability. Oh, yeah.
most
Or all,
times it's contradictory.
yeah, most times it's contradictory. So, oftentimes you have to just, yeah, you have to have a running mental model of the world. There's different factions at play, different power. There's covert geopolitics at play. You have to always keep your mind open that one side is being deceptive and the other side is also being deceptive. What are the true? You follow the money. You ask yourself. You try to put yourself in their shoes because they're still human at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Allegedly, right? Allegedly, but you
There are
never
some
know.
who definitely think not. Yeah.
Yeah. But there is a human element at play, and you have to look at things in terms of motives. Who stands to gain from this? Who stands to gain from that? And it's very messy. But if you're absorbing all this information like a supercomputer, you're just like constantly running all this stuff in your head at all
Yeah.
times.
Yeah. You basically have a running hypothesis that you're trying to disprove. And if you do disprove it, then you adapt a new hypothesis, right? I
Hmm.
mean, that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah,
So,
and the map isn't a territory. Just because we have a
yeah.
map in our head doesn't mean it's firm and shouldn't be changed, because it's never the territory. But I think it's like open-minded skepticism, being open-minded to absorb new information that's contradictory to your current worldview, but at the same time running it through your skeptical filter to make
Yeah.
sure it passes snuff.
Yeah. But, I noticed a lot of, maybe not as much the guests that you have on your show, but that you see elsewhere, they have a high degree of certainty,
Mm, yeah.
which always really surprises me because, um, there's so much that's unknowable, and there's definitely contradictory evidence everywhere of everything. That I wonder. Sometimes I think maybe they've got it figured out something. But I'm not that I'm totally missing. But I don't know.
And look, like even if you are like one of these these high level elites that are in these circles, like at the very top of the pyramid, even they don't know what's really going on, because they don't know the other side's motive, like
Exactly.
to a full degree.
Exactly.
Like
It-
they just have better intel than us for sure, but they still don't know the truth, and the other side doesn't know the truth of our side, and so it's like no one really knows the entire
yeah, you
totality of the
can't
truth.
possibly know what's in the opposition's mind and plans and all of that. I mean, you can't possibly know that or how they're going to respond to certain things. Although I will say, one of the other things that's certainly been on my mind a lot lately is all of the things that are happening with Palantir and with the tech infrastructure that's being built around us. And I wrote an essay maybe a few weeks ago around a DARPA program. I don't know if you saw it or not, but basically there was this DARPA program called Theory of Mind, and it's that program is what Palantir is. And essentially, what it tries to do is it looks at all parties by default as adversaries, and it tries to model out, it tries to scoop up huge amounts of all available information possible about them, their associates, everything,
Mm-hmm.
and then with this computer modeling, essentially to predict how they will respond to what's actually happening. And because I think they're trying to eliminate that one, that part where they can't be sure. And I think we can see evidence of this in action. In, for instance, the fact that why has the red line never been crossed with Russia? Why have we been able to move it so much further along? Keep pushing and pushing and pushing, and yet never have them overreact. And I think that is, I think that this is the Palantir's modeling systems at work. I think you could see that what
Mm.
happened when you saw Israel just sort of do a clean sweep of the Middle East. I think that's at work, and I also see that it's not perfect because I'm sure it
So
was
you're saying they're
involved
running
in
this?
a.
You're saying they're running all this intelligence data to come up with the best strategy?
Yeah, and in real time modeling for next step. I mean, we know they're doing it for individual targeting of people in Gaza. I mean, that's been well reported. We know that Palantir has been used for targeting operations by the U.S. in Iraq and Syria within the last year. I mean, that's been widely reported. So we know, and Palantir is not new to the federal government. I mean, again, it was a CIA project that was illegal, so they made it private, and the CIA was their client, and then now it's going from there. Elon Musk comes in and it gets deployed throughout the federal government, and the contracts have exploded along with the stock. So we know it's like it's been there for a while, but I wonder, like, how was it that Israel was able to be so effective at wiping out Hezbollah the way that they did, just this clean sweep of the Middle East, really. And they did run into a problem, of course, with Iran. And my guess is, these things are not perfect. This modeling is not AI is not at its it's not all knowable. It will make mistakes, and I'm sure it makes many many mistakes at a lower level that never even
But they
show
but
up
they
on our
but they
radar.
exceeded expectations. They definitely exceeded expectations. I don't think anyone 2 years ago would have expected, like you said, the clean sweep.
It's amazing. I mean, you look you see it happen, you go, "Holy crap! Who would have imagined?" I mean, it's just done so smoothly. I mean, like I don't think it's good, but it was just done so smoothly. And I'm sure that the attack on Iran was all. I'm sure it was the same modeling. I think that they expected a different response. I think they expected they would succeed that first night at actually doing something, but the modeling allowed probably, I think, came up with this solution that was deployed that shut the whole thing down. 12-day war, all done. You know,
Hmm.
I mean, it's so anyway, there's this so on my mind a lot is this system that's in the background that does look at really all individuals from an adversarial standpoint. And in truth, like, when Biden was president, there was talk of this list of potential dissidents in America. It was 1 million people who might be troublemakers if something were to happen. Well, this was a Palantir built list, I mean, so the same maybe type of list is the list of Gazans who might be associated with Hamas. Um, so this is all eventually going to be turned on Americans, and that's definitely a big concern of mine. How will be turned on us? I don't know. It doesn't not necessarily like as targets, but it certainly will be used because it does seem to be quite useful in altering trying to get in again a theory of mind to get in the mind of the individual and to be able to then shape the decision set, not only predict but to shape the decision set of that person. And with social media and all that, with what I see in my unique feed and you and yours, I mean, you know you can't, you have to imagine you're being programmed with these things. You have to.
Yeah, we come to we meaning like the community that we run in. There's like this idea that with X being liberated under Elon Musk and Meta being the noose being loosened a bit under Meta as well, so you do have more free speech even on YouTube. I've noticed that we're able to
Way
say
more.
we're able to
Way
say
more.
way more stuff today than we were before, and it's like it begs you to question whether or not they're doing this because they out of the goodness of their heart because they love free speech so much, or what's the rationale behind it? What's the objective behind it? Is it just to because if everyone's censoring, they can't capture the data is not accurate. It's biased data, so they
Right. And
need
they want more, they want more data. They
they
want more
need
data.
everyone's genuine reaction. They need everyone's genuine proclivities and their tendencies, and because the model is only as good as the data that you feed it. And if you're feeding it data where people can't even access the extremist information that you're suppressing, well, then you can't identify any dissidents or extremists or things like that.
Right. And this is not without precedent, although this is fantastically more advanced. But in Mao's China, there was, after a period of repression, there was something called "Let 100 flowers bloom." We need new ideas. It's like it's
Mm.
okay now. I know what happened before was nasty, but like speak up. Like we want more innovation. We want we want to hear from everybody. Well, that was a trap. That was a trap. So, that eventually got closed out. I mean, the people who spoke up inappropriately, were definitely punished for it. So, yeah, I feel like we're in a 100 flowers bloom era right
Yeah.
now.
Well, it's not anything that we can ever. I mean, we have really no impact on
No,
the the macro direction of humanity and the United States and all these geopolitical powers. But what we can affect is our own lives. This is where I want to segue over to your book here, Matt, because especially if you have sons, especially if you're a young man yourself. I mean, I'm not that young anymore, but uh, you can't help but notice over the last several decades, there haven't been any good role models for men. I mean, you're starting to see it pop up now in the manosphere. Starting,
yeah,
it may be an overcorrection, you could say, but
yeah,
it's a needed overcorrection, right? Eventually, we'll find a good equilibrium. But I want to get into your book, The Preparation. Talk to us about what exactly is this book? Who is this meant for? It's young men, but what is this designed to do?
Okay. All right. So I agree with you entirely that there's not good role models for young men that are out there. And I think that even, what is the so-called manosphere does encourage like pride in being a man and, having the right attitude as a man, like those kinds of things. But that's doesn't get an individual very far. Um, So I think it's very limiting. So what we set out to do fundamentally is because my son at 17 had already, because I'm a college dropout, I dropped out after 3 semesters and all I've done has been an entrepreneur my whole life. He didn't grow up in a household that said college is the key to success. I didn't propagandize him one way or the other. I just, he just his awareness of where my success came from. And so I found him. He's also he's one of the kids that got trapped in COVID, and like their life got completely, disjointed because of the whole thing. Uh, he was supposed to start high school in 2021,
Mm,
and it was all online, and so it was a joke. Like the first day of school, the principal's wearing a BLM shirt, and so is his math teacher, and it was a joke. It was a total joke. It was shortly after that I said, we're just doing homeschool from now on. And we went that with both him and my daughter. But anyway, so my son then at 17, feeling what we all men feel at 17 is that we need to do something. We know we're not children anymore, but we're nowhere near what we need to be, what we want to be. And so we're looking for that answer. And basically, today, people are presented with three choices. You can join the military, you can go to trade school, which, like, Mike Rose did a good job of making that, popular again. And certainly it's probably a sure thing to basic economic stability than college is today. Or if you're if you're a marginally intelligent person, you come from a decent family. I mean, it's the expectation of going to college is kind of the thing. So those are your three choices. And the goal of all three of these things is basically so that at the end of it, you will be economically viable. That's the point, more than anything else. It's that you'll be economically viable. Well, first of all, I think that alone as an objective is a huge mistake because being economically viable, um, yeah, it's obviously important, but it is not life. It is not the most important thing it is not something that inspires a young man at 18 years old, or 20 or 50 years old for that matter, you know? So, what we offer is a specific, and I mean very specific alternative to college where we outline exactly what someone should do instead of going to college. And we college presumably is 4 years, although only 41% of people graduate in 4 years. But college is 4 years, so we did it over a course of 4 years, broken up into quarters, which we call cycles.
mm,
And each of these cycles includes an anchor course, which I'll come back to. It includes a set of academics, learning from professors online for free or virtually free, some of the best professors in the world, and a set of reading that they would do also that we prescribe, and then there's electives, of course, in there too, so that they get a if you go to college, you get a BA or a BS, right? So if you're on the BS side of things, you don't know anything about the BA side of things at all, really, and the vice versa. Well, this you get both in it. They're both included because there's no reason why um, you shouldn't have. And actually, I say Doug's original vision of the book, which he tried to pitch me on 12 years ago, and I had no interest in doing it because it didn't make any sense. He told me he's written a lot of books. He's like, it's total brain damage to write a book, and you don't make any money doing it. And then he, in the next breath, is trying to sell me on writing a book with him, and I wasn't interested. He brought it up every couple of years, and I still always passed on it. But then when my son was at this point, I could see in him what he needed. I could see the anxiety, and I could feel it, and I wanted to solve the problem. So I got back with Doug. I mean, got back together with Doug. I mean, I see Doug, I talk to Doug 3 times a week at least. But I said, I think we need to do this now. I think we need to do it. And so we started with a very rough sketch of things that, in Doug's mind, skills, activities, games, things like that, that basically would make somebody a Renaissance man. That's the idea in Doug's mind, a Renaissance man, not just somebody who is economically viable,
Mm.
but somebody who is a Renaissance man, which would naturally make you economically viable, but so much more. And we start with this thumbnail sketch, and my son then began to act as a beta tester for us, like a guinea pig. Um, he was a good sport about it, and it wasn't, it certainly didn't have the structure it has today. Today, it's highly formalized. I mean, it tells people again exactly where to go, what to do. I mean, we've done all the research on it all. We know how much it costs to do these things, et cetera, et cetera. And and so he began the experiment. And I'd say for the first 9 months, it was a lot of like coaching between me and him, like how, like figuring it out along the way. But at this point, my son has done more in 2 years than I think most people do. I don't want to be rude and say in a lifetime, but like in at least a couple of decades. I mean, uh, the subheadline of the book, by the way, is how to become competent, confident, and dangerous. And that's the idea of the book. And certainly he has developed competency in a number of things. I mean, he became an EMT, was one of the first things he did. I mean, it's is that a profession that he'd want to pursue? Well, no, it's not. I mean, it isn't. But when it's priceless having someone around who actually knows how to handle an emergency situation with skill and competency. I mean, that is a priceless skill to have. He also parlayed that into a summer gig where he was earning $600 a day working on wildfires as an EMT. You know,
Wow.
for, so yeah, the so a lot of people, when I talk about this, they assume I'm paying for everything for him. I'm not. I saved an irresponsibly small amount for him in a Vanguard account over the course of his life. I mean, irresponsibly. I should have saved a lot more. I gave him that as seed capital, but he has that same amount of money left over. He's in 2 years he has the same money he started with. He's earned money along the way. Unlike college, this is something you can work your way through. So he's done that. He's sailed around the Falkland Islands and through the Strait of Magellan. He's a private pilot. So he's flown in both. Started off in Colorado and has flown here in Uruguay as well. He's done. I mean, he's is the way this thing has, as I said, is broken down into these cycles. So it's 3 month period. His next cycle is the entrepreneurship cycle, where he launches a business. So has to develop a product, has to identify a need in the marketplace, figure out how to sell it to customers, and deliver the product to customers, all within a 3 month period. And that sounds crazy to people who are not entrepreneurs. But I was talking with James Altucher, who's a serial entrepreneur, earlier this week, and he said, I think that's a perfect time because in 3 months, especially with the service business, if it'll work or not. I mean, like it doesn't take 5 years to figure this thing out. If you've got something or not in 3 months. His next cycle after that is he'll spend time in Thailand at Muay Thai. It's a pretty intense school. They have 2 locations in Thailand. Uh, I mean, it's mostly about that. There's other time to do other things while he's there, which he'll have to because there's academics involved and other expectations along with it. But that's how the cycles go. So it's got one major anchor course. There's one that's called Heavy Now, where you go to the school in Florida where you learn to operate all the heavy machinery like bulldozers and backhoes and all of that stuff and become certified in that. So again, it's economically viable that alone. You could get a job from that alone. You get a job alone from being an EMT. He's a qualified crewman on a sailboat now. He could get a job doing that. All of these things create economic viability for a person, but the whole thing is it's about stacking them together, you know, and then what you end up with is so much greater than what than what you'd have with one alone. So that's essentially how the cycles work, and they get more abstract as you go over time, meaning like the entrepreneurship one is way more abstract than you know EMT, for instance, a
Mhm.
lot more complex.
Would you say it's accurate to say that you can really distill this in being autodidactic and not just being a know-it-all in a certain subject matter, but being a learn-it-all, being able to learn and adapt and evolve, constantly evolve, and not get too uh, inclined to pigeonhole yourself in one identity, i.e., I'm a coder, i.e., I'm a financial analyst, but being able to maladapt, being able to learn new things. And if there ever comes a time to shed your professional coil and from one profession to the other, being able to do so in that regard as well. I mean, I was a
That
W-2
is
worker. I was a 9 to 5 worker all the way up until a year ago, and now I'm a
right.
YouTuber or a podcast. I hate
You're
saying YouTuber, but
and
I'm a
you're
podcast.
crushing it. And you're crushing it.
Hey guys, quick pause from the podcast, but this is something I feel is really important to let you in on. Back in 2020, before I even started this channel, I was looking for an edge, a way to find the big opportunities most investors never even hear about. That's when I found Capitalist Exploits Insider. From day one, it felt like I suddenly had my own team of world-class market pros working for me, digging up trades all over the world, doing the deep research, and handing me ideas that had massive asymmetric upside. Stuff that I would never even think about. Since then, my gains with them have blown past the S&P and the Nasdaq, and it's honestly the single best newsletter I've ever subscribed to. And that's not me blowing smoke, that's for real. I've interviewed their publisher, Chris McIntosh, more times than I can count. In fact, my latest conversation with him is linked in the description box down below if you want to check that out, as well as a pinned comment. And every time, I'm reminded why I've stayed a member for years. Right now, they're offering a special $1,000 discount on the Insider subscription, but it's only for CapitalCosm viewers, so you're only going to get it by clicking the link down below in the description box or the pinned comment. You're not going to find this anywhere else. Click the link, lock it in, and start getting the same game-changing research I've been using since 2020.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you are an autodidact, and I don't think that that is something that comes to people naturally, actually. But through this process that they go through, they become extremely good at learning. They become extremely good because it's intense, focused on a specific thing, and it's repeated in a totally different thing. And so, like my son, like me, I'm an introvert. Even the idea of walking into a new room for the first time, we're going to learn about a new thing is like something I'd prefer not to do, just by default, with my personality. So it teaches you to get over all that nonsense, which is the first step to being an autodidact. We're like, I'm open to new things. I'm going to try something new, so it gets you over those ideas. But that's not really the main point of the book. The main point of the book is to actually legitimately prepare them for the world that they're going to face, which college does an awful job right now doing. I do think that the trades do a better job of it, although it is extremely limited. And, one of the things that, like, we tried, for instance, to include a cycle where people, go learn the basics of being an electrician, for instance. And it's actually impossible because it's a controlled market, where basically you got to serve time at a certain level and before you get to move up, and it's not merit based, and it's just like it's just not something you just step into and learn the skill. That no one will train you, not in the United States, that's for sure. So at least
So, I
not
mean,
any.
the title is very apropos, the preparation, because at the same time, you were going through these winds of change, not just like in society as a whole. I mean, with the automation phase we're going through, with the uncertainty with AI, what's it going to replace? What's it not going to replace? It makes the future very murky. I mean, we can't even look a year from now and make really solid projections in terms of where we should. I mean, I don't even know if podcasting will still be around in a few years, given AI influencers, perhaps. Who knows? So how can we? How do you navigate the murkiness of projecting not just a few years into the future, but projecting out someone's life from now
Well,
until the end?
I think the key is that you have to answer the most fundamental question that young men actually have, that they do answer in this book, which is, what kind of man do they want to become? Not the question everyone asks you, like, what are you going to do? what's your job, which is a bullshit question. It's actually such a trivial question that we put so much pressure on with young people who have no idea generally what they want to do, that they're supposed to be able to answer what kind of job do they want. They have no exposure to the world. They don't even have any idea what's possible, but they can create in their mind the kind of man they want to become. And we have the book is in part workbook. I mean, it's a big book. Um, this is the hardcover edition.
And it's a
Uh,
nice looking book too. Like it looks like it's really nice to hold in your hands too.
it's
Like
beautiful.
from an
I mean,
aesthetic point of view.
it's full. I This is one thing I did because I figured as a parent, if I imagine myself trying to get a if I was trying to get Maxim to read the book, you know, I was trying to think of creating an impression with him, giving it to him. He would hold it, and by holding it alone, he would know he's not held a book like this before. If he flipped into it a little bit, he would see things he's never seen before. Like there's QR codes all over this
Mm,
book, because it's interactive
mm,
in that way, because we make a case with something and we show them examples of videos of where they can see what we're talking about in action. Um, so it's designed to be different, and we tried to make it as much as we could within the limitations of Amazon, of which there are many, uh, as beautiful as it could be. So, but the important thing that people don't ask young men is what kind of man they want to become, and that is the only question that matters. I mean, when Doug first pitched me on this book, he said, "I want to write this book, called Renaissance Man," and when I asked him follow up, well, what's it about? Like, tell me more about it. And he said, well, Matt, Doug can be very vague. He's a philosopher, right? Really at heart. I mean, he's famous for being an economist and speculator and all this stuff, but he's a philosopher. So Doug says, well, the three most important verbs in every language are be, do, and have. And I want the book to be about that.
mm.
And I'm like, not understanding, I didn't understand what he meant by it. But here's what it means. Essentially, today, everybody is concerned, I would say consumed with have. I'd like to have a beautiful wife. I'd like to have more money. I'd like to have a nice car. I'd like to have a good boss. I'd like whatever it is. I'd like to have. Our whole society is oriented toward that. And what's seemingly forgotten is that have is simply a byproduct of doing. It is not. And so if you pursue a have, you will be unlikely to be successful. Because if you focus on doing, incredible byproducts can come from that. So
Mhm.
if young people, though, if they're only oriented toward having, and they engage the world with an idea of how do I get, how do I have, it will send them potentially down the wrong path for them. The wrong path, I mean, a dark path potentially, to get the have. Instead, do is the operative. Do is, and in fact, young people have the greatest advantage with this. They have at basically at 18 years old, no liabilities. Okay, they're free. They have unlimited energy. And if they're like most young men, if you give them something worthy to do, they like, climb that mountain. There's something special up there. They'll go climb that mountain, but most people don't put a worthy cause in front of a young man, They say you just go to college, and they they just go with emotions, to go with the crowd to get through it. So they're ready to do. And the book is like 90% about doing. But the most important thing is be. That's actually the only thing that really matters, is the be. And most people never really even seriously consider this at all. And I think the trouble that we see in our society today is reflective of this fact. I mean, uh, it's definitely reflective of this fact. And to be honest, I didn't, as I talk about in the book, seriously consider this question myself until I was 30. And there was personal tragedy sort of upended things in my life, and I really gave me time to step back and seriously think about what really mattered, essentially. And what we do was the first simple exercise in here is we have them craft a personal code. And I hate rules, basically of all kind. I mean, Doug and I are
Mm.
both, I guess, known for being the anarchist types, right? We don't
You
like
don't like
rules.
confined to us
I don't like
to rules.
somebody telling me what to do, you
Mm.
know? I feel like that's nonsense. If I'm not messing with you, you leave me alone. You know, that kind of a thing. However, I think rules that I designed for myself, uh, and only for myself to follow, I think are actually of great value to me. And for a young person, they're super powerful because the truth is that everybody engages in certain behaviors that when they do it, especially when you're young, that make you feel small, that make you feel ashamed, that make you that you're just like out of your base instinct, maybe, the lower self of you, you're sort of maybe succumbing to peer pressure to do, to get hammered one night when you didn't want to, or it could be that every time you show up late, you kind of feel stupid, you know, or not being prepared for with your homework or for class or for whatever. All these things that we
Yeah.
do, we go into it, we go and oh, we screwed up. Or when you lie, for
Yeah,
instance.
shorter time preference
Yeah,
things.
but this is the default of like a man who's never considered what matters to them. It's the default. And so these young people have not considered these things. So we ask them, think about the things that make you feel small, the things that you do, and we help them think about it with the examples like what I just shared with you, and just decide for yourself. Don't tell anyone else that you're just not going to do those things anymore. And this is the beginning of a person's self-esteem. This is actually where it's formed.
Mm.
It's because they are deciding for themselves who they are. It's the first time in their life. Up until that point, they lived completely under the rules, and these kids have lived under more rules, regulations, and surveillance than any population in human history. Um, there's no free play. The term free play exists because of this, because of basically everybody has organized play only now. So anyway, so this forms a beachhead, the beginning of where they start to separate themselves as their own unique individual. And it's only a set of rules that help them, define themselves. It's small, and it will change over time. But in addition to that, we lay out for them the value of virtue. And virtue, we use the ancient Greek and Roman virtues. We tell them what they all were and tell them what they all mean, give them some examples. And we say, pick some of those that speak to you, that call to you, that call it like that make you feel like that's cool. Like, the courage is a virtue, hospitality is a virtue, justice is a virtue. There's a whole bunch of them anyway. They're all listed. But just pick the ones that they call to you. They don't all have to, but the ones that really seem like that feel good for you, and write those down. So you got the virtues down there, and virtues are something that are, whereas the rules are it's binary. You failed, or you succeeded. You lied or you didn't, or whatever your rule is. With the virtues, it's something that the ancients would aspire to.
Hmm.
It was constant aspiration. It was always you could always be more courageous, you'd be more hospitable, you like so it's something so it calls for their higher self.
And I think the absence of being, of just being, like you said, it's yielded like this counterfeit identity, like identities in people, like getting tattoos and like
Yeah.
identifying, like calling, it's this anxiety that's manifested itself, that's been transformed into what we see today. I mean, this anxiousness that we have with, especially with young people, always wanting to be part of something because there's something missing. There's because the fundamental something is missing here.
Yes, exactly. And I would say this doesn't apply to 17 and 18-year-olds alone. I mean, I know people that are
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely for
35,
sure.
and they're lost. And they're lost not because they're lost not because I mean, certainly I don't think they did the right things, but that wouldn't make them lost, really. What makes them really lost is that they don't know who the hell they even are. They don't know who the hell they are as compared to the people around them. They just move amongst the others and do as the others do. And I think you can explain much of the crazy social experience we've had over the last 5 years on the fact that so much of the population is they don't stand for anything.
They're an empty shell. They're waiting for
Yes.
something to possess them, like some sort of movement or identity.
Or a hero to
Yeah,
come along and save the day, daddy to come home, something like that. And so the ultimate thing, and this is the thing that really calls to a young man, is get them to think about the man they want to become. For some reason with my son, it's the Count of Monte Cristo. In
mm,
his head, in his mind, he's like, and I don't know if we had to read it in junior high. Uh, there's been a couple movies made in the last 30 years about it. I like the older one better, but my son's read the unabridged version, which is like this. He
mhm,
loves the character, and so he's like, so in his mind, he's like, what would that guy do? What would he do in this
right.
situation? Despite the fact that part of the story is he totally wreaks vengeance on all his old enemies. I mean, that's part of the story, but that's not the part he's focusing on. He's focusing on this man who had lots of integrity and honesty and good character, who got totally destroyed and then built himself into something remarkable, from a skill standpoint. And so that with this vision, this worthy goal in mind, we show them, here, do this. You will become a different man. You'll become the man you want to be by doing this. And we're very specific about the directions of exactly what to do. There's no shirking on the academics, but there's lots of action in there. There's lots of adventure. Uh, it's a hero's journey in many ways. It's
And another thing is is clarity. I think you're providing clarity because there's so many things that are just foggy and unclear. But you're providing things in very strong detail.
we literally say, do exactly this. Here's
Yes.
who you call. Here's what you do. Here's the classes to take at the same time. And by the way, we believe the way you learn best is not the way that's taught in school, where you learn all these disparate facts and you try and kind of remember them long enough at least to get through the exam, but then they kind of fade because there's no connective tissue.
Hmm.
So like one of the cycles, for instance, is you go to Florence for a month and you study Italian cooking. You live at the school there. You take Italian lessons while you're there. You're in one of my favorite cities in the world, surrounded by history and art. And so the academic portions of it, the other things, all relate to that. So you build this lattice work of understanding about the history of things by being there and seeing what's around you, and and of course the academics and that you're doing along the way. One other whole part of it is that that's super important, is that um, beyond the anchor courses, we recommend a whole series of activities for people to explore. These are things that someone might call hobbies, okay, but and they can include things that definitely would be hobbies, like you know, definitely things that could be hobbies. But these things, the idea is that young people should definitely get out there and engage in novel activity, get out of their routine. If you do the same thing every day, nothing will change.
Mm,
And you'd be surprised if you mix up your routine, if you go to a new place, if you talk to new people, doors will open for you in ways you can't imagine. I mean, there is a serendipity piece to this that's amazing. I mean, obviously I'm a co-host with Doug on this podcast, but and I was a huge fan of Doug's before I met him. But
it,
how I met him I got to tell you, I met him I was because I'd read his work, and he's before the financial crisis. He's warning all about it. I tell my wife, I'm like, I feel like I should go down. I had a 2-year-old daughter, or 2-week-old daughter at the time, and I said, I really feel some urgency to go down to Buenos Aires and look at apartments. So I went down there, spent a few days looking. One evening, after looking all day, I walk out of my hotel room, and I literally walk into Doug Casey, who's walking perpendicularly to me across the sidewalk, and that's how I met him. I mean, and I met
it,
lots of interesting people that way.
it's really setting yourself up for asymmetric wins, and you can't get asymmetric wins if you don't roll the dice. And
Yeah,
the more trials you have under your belt, the more likely you are to get these asymmetric wins. It's kind of the same thing as investing, right? We don't go all in on one position, but we sprinkle in multiple smaller positions so that when one does explode to the upside, it makes up
right.
for all the other losses. And it's kind of the same way in life. You always want to put yourself out there. Not every interaction is going to be a success. Not every trial is going to be a success, but the ones that are will be transformative in a way that make up for
E-
all the other ones.
The thing with this is even when you fail, like Max is doing this entrepreneurship one, much harder than going to EMT school or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he fails, he will be better for it. He will be better for it. So I agree, though. It is a lot like investing, except for it's the single best thing to invest in as you could, which is yourself and your own capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with young people, we think we're doing that when we send them to college. Instead, they come out indoctrinated and really not capable to do anything. One last story. I know we're around time, but I was talking to James Altucher about this, and he said, James is a serial entrepreneur. He's he's like way smarter than I am. He went to school for computer science a while ago when it definitely was in super high demand. Went to a top tier university, went to a top tier grad school studying computer science. At his first job, he told me he immediately had to be enrolled in remedial training because he was not good enough to work with his peers. So after all that time and energy and money he spent at the best schools in the world to learn this thing, he had to be trained. He had to go to remedial training, and that just shows you even then, and even when it's a very specific area, that the schools do a poor job of preparing you for the real world. I mean, gosh, I talk about this forever. The other thing, colleges do not teach people to become independent adults. They're institutionalized. All their meals are wherever, they got a meal card. They just got to show up at it. They get it, they don't, there's no engagement with the real world. They're in an isolated, perfect little bubble. It's like a summer camp, but like with more free time. You got 80% free time instead of, maybe only 20% free time at a summer camp.
Everything is nice and clean and sterile, whereas the real world is messy and unpredictable.
And awesome and dynamic and full of
Mhm.
opportunity because of it. So anyway, yeah, this is our book. Doug and I wrote it. Obviously not for money, because as he told me many times, you don't make any money in books. But I honestly believe I've done a lot of things in my life. I really sincerely believe this is the most important thing I've ever done. If you have a young person in your life, a young man in your life, who you could see what they could be, but they're falling, but they don't have the direction. They're not sure what to do. Get it in their hands, and I guarantee if they give it a read, it will change their life. And I can say this because it did it with my son, because he was our tester. We didn't publish this out as a theoretical example,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying it was easy for him at first. It was not, and I'm not saying it's easy for him at all. This is a hard thing to do. The hardest thing is because you're going against the tide. It's like being an entrepreneur. You're doing something, you must have experienced this. People saying, "What are you doing, Danny? Like,
Oh
what's
yeah.
this? What is this about?" Like,
Oh,
and
100%. I mean, I remember last year when I started going full time on this. I went to a birthday party, a friend's birthday party, and I told him that I'm a podcaster now, and he had like this glazed look on his eyes, like, uh huh, like he's a very concerned
yeah,
look, like,
yeah.
and
He's
like,
like, "Oh my God, Danny might need an intervention."
yeah, like you
Yeah.
left your high paying W-2 job to become a podcaster,
Yep. This
and
is
it's
how it
like,
works. This is
man,
how
like,
it, the thing is, you go against the tide, and this is a real psychological thing that people have to deal with, which is why they need a parent or somebody who at least is in their corner and just says, "No, no, just keep going. It'll be okay," because they will experience it. Now, I knew he would experience it because I'm an entrepreneur, and I was a total failure until it was undeniable that I was extremely successful. By my own family. I mean, I was just like I was a total failure until they didn't want they
mhm.
thought I was an idiot. They didn't want to listen to anything I had to say. And then once it was obvious to them, they just realized, holy shit, like what happened? All of a sudden they're very like, oh, he's very smart. We should listen to what he says now, you know?
Hmm.
And I was like, I was doing the same thing the whole time. It's just now the proof of work is there. And now with Maxim, it's the same thing. His mother, his grandparents, his aunts and uncles, who are all called me, all worried about him when he started, are all so proud of him 2 years
Wow.
later. I mean, so that's how that this is the journey that going against the grain, that's what it costs you. And honestly, if you have some, if you have to have a bit of courage to do it, but if you do it, um, you're
But
fantastically more
here's the thing.
likely.
Here's the thing, Matt. Can every man achieve this, though?
Oh, well,
Is every man
it,
cut out to be an entrepreneur?
well, you don't have to be an entrepreneur. You could take a job. You could take a job operating heavy equipment if you want to. You could work on a sailboat if you want to. You could be an EMT. You could do like what I mean. Many of the people that Max worked during the summer, literally their only job was for the summer months. They worked on these wildfires, got paid very well for it, and basically were kind of they did nothing else the rest of the year. So the whole idea is that each one of these little things makes you an economically viable person. The combination of them together makes you, Scott Adams has this whole concept of skill stacking. I mean, it makes you vastly more powerful. The whole idea is to give a man the ability to be able to shape the world around them, to recognize how the world works, and to create opportunities for themselves. And so I think whether that's as an entrepreneur, or as an employee, this does prepare them for the future. And that's the goal.
Gotcha. Well, hey, Matt, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I mean, we could talk about this for hours on end, but let's go ahead and
Wait,
wrap
wait,
things
wait,
up.
wait till your kid gets a little older, and then you'll want to talk a lot more about it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well,
Trust
hey,
me.
we'll have the link to the book down below. We have a special link down below, so be sure to check it out, guys. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. We'll also have the link to your YouTube channel, Doug Casey's Take,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well.
Please, thanks.
Thank you so much for your time, Matt. For those who want to support the channel, go ahead and click that like button. Right, go Matt, go in the comment section. Let me know. Did you agree? Did you disagree? I read all the comments, really.
And
So
I will too. I will too.
yeah, and I'll also reply to a small handful of them as well. So I can't get to all of them, but I will try to get to some of them. So drop me your thoughts down below. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss an episode. And liking, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff goes a long way in helping push this video in the algorithm, as well as this channel and this message. And then finally, check us out on Substack at capitalcosm.substack.com to get early access, ad-free versions, and uncensored versions of all of my content.
Can I say one thing?
Go
I'm
ahead.
a huge fan of Danny's work, and if you get value from his stuff, go subscribe to his Substack. I'm a paid subscriber to it because I value it. I know what it is, and I want to support you and what you're doing, Danny. So if you're listening to this and you've been like free riding it for a while, I'm like, go subscribe. Do him a
I
favor.
appreciate it, Matt. Yeah, I mean, you get a chance to ask me questions, DM me, ask any of my future guests questions, make guest recommendations, all that other stuff, as well as getting the content early before the YouTube audience without any ads and everything else. So, thanks, Matt. Thanks, guys, and I will catch you later. Bye.
Thanks.